Wow, amazing, right? Impressive. It was beautiful. Um, I'm still singing Happiness song. So now we are going to keep going. As you have seen, we've started really, really high with spirituality, with the connection to the universe, to ourselves, to everything going on. Um, and now we are going to keep that route with Maria Sirois, and we are going to be talking about the topic of authenticity. Actually, Maria, there is a psychologist, positive psychologist that is my inspiration. Is you. You are really special, and everything you touch, the way you do it, and the angle is so intimate that it really goes deep, really, really deep into the roots of authenticity. So having you talking about this topic is just a gift. Thank you very much and welcome.
I'm so glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I wanted to talk to you this morning or this afternoon, this evening, wherever you are, about the connection between authenticity and belonging. And I want to begin with a poem or phrase of a poem from Pablo Neruda about the moment when he recognized that he was, in fact, a poet, that this was his life's work. He wrote, "And something ignited in my soul, fever or unremembered wings, and I went my own way, deciphering that first bare line, pure foolishness, pure wisdom of someone who knows nothing, and suddenly the heavens unfastened and opened." And suddenly the heavens unfastened and opened. We must, in the territory of belonging, first find a way to belong ourselves, to come home to what is true, whether we are fumbling around in the territory of not knowing, of foolishness, or the territory of wisdom, to come home here first. So, the first invitation I'd like to offer you this morning is from Tal Ben Shahar, one of our world thought leaders, and that is the permission to be human, to be all of who we are, feel what we feel, think what we think, be messy in the ways that we are messy, a little nutty in the ways that we are nutty. Permission to be human and allow all the parts of ourselves to exist. In their research, Tedeschi and Calhoun from North Carolina had uncovered that there are some crucial elements to a path of authenticity. One is congruence, and congruence means when what you think and feel line up with how you actually behave in the world. So if you believe that you are a kind person and you value kindness, you actually show up in the world as a kind person. But they also understand that to move toward a more true living, we must accept our incongruence, the ways in which how we think and feel and behave don't line up with what we value. I I imagine sometimes myself as a large dining room table, like an oval table, and at each seat is an aspect of myself. I am brave, kind, sarcastic, ambitious, prideful, warm, quick tempered, fierce, insecure, loving, compassionate. We're all a bit of a mess pot, right? A little bit of a mess. And some of the parts of ourselves support each other beautifully, and some don't. And this is okay because you see, the territory of authenticity is not about arriving at a fixed place where we are who we are and that's it. It is a journey, a process of uncovering and becoming more true to those things that are nourishing and sustaining and life giving to ourselves and to the world. As dance legend Martha Graham once said, there is a vitality, a life force, an energy, a quickening that is translated through you into all of time. And because there is only one of you, if you do not express this quickening, this life force, this vitality will exist in no other place, in no other time. So the first invitation is actually to be who we are. Permission to be human, not perfect, a little messy, quirky, funky, permission to be who we are. The second step is about belonging out in the world. And in so doing, bringing that life force that Martha Graham talked about fully alive. What might this look like? In the early days of the pandemic here in America, a young girl named Emerson Weber from the middle of our country, South Dakota, began to do what she loved to do. She is a schoolgirl. She missed her friends. And so she began to write them letters, like actual letters, and put them in an envelope. And then she would decorate the envelope with color and stickers and glitter and send them off. And every day the postman would take her letters for her and deliver them to her friends. And then one day she realized, wow, I couldn't do this thing that I love without the postman. So she took a card, drew him a card, put it in an envelope, put stickers and glitter and love all on the envelope, and gave it to him. He was so moved by her kindness and recognition of his work in the world that he brought the letter back to his place of work, the post office, and all the other postal workers were moved. And they began to write letters to her, to Emerson. And Emerson's father said that those letters were some of the most touching and tender and vulnerable notes he has ever seen. Because you see, most of the time, we do not recognize the people who do the daily work of our living, the people who clean the streets or deliver the packages or the letters. And Emerson's gesture of kindness went viral around the country, and post men and women from around America sent her notes of thanks. This is what it looks like to show up in life with ourselves, quirky, unusual, particular, unique, and give ourselves permission to bring ourselves forward. So, how do we do this? How do we bring our more true selves out into the world? I want to offer you a few questions this morning. What do I love? We might ask ourselves. What makes my heart sing? Is it decorating or puzzles or baking, athletics? What do you love? What makes your heart sing? With whom do I belong? Where do I feel most at home? With whom do I belong and where do I feel most at home? What is the meaning of my life? And what values sustain me? What deep values sustain me? Is it honesty or justice? Is it creativity or passion? At the deepest parts of my soul, what values sustain me? From all of this, we draw the second permission to love what and whom we love. We cannot belong if we are holding ourselves back from loving whom and what we love. I'm thinking of the brave souls right now in the world who are exploring their identities, risking exclusion and longing for inclusion, for naming what is true for them and encouraging this blossoming from within, even if it might be so different from the systems in which they are raised or the families in which they were born. Here is Marcus Tullius Tiro from the 1st century BC. Drink from your own well. Sup at your table. Speak from your own heart. Go where your legs take you. Know your own mind. See through your soul's eyes. Follow none but your own self. For each man has his own pathway, and whoever would be your guide cannot help but lead you astray. This belonging to ourselves in the world requires a letting go, you see, a letting go of other people's expectations about who we should be and how we should show up, but also a letting go of certain myths within ourselves. I wish I could see you now and ask you to raise your hands, but do it anyway. How many of us have been trapped by the myth that we must be perfect or must be good all the time, or we must fit in to the rules of the family or the religion or the country around us? How many of us in this field, right, in the whole happiness field, believe that we ought to be happy all the time? Or that we should be just like, and then fill in the blank. When I began my work in this profession, I thought I ought to be just like some of the most, biggest researchers, Barbara Fredrickson and Sonia Lubomirsky, or some of the most powerful coaches like Robert Biswas Steiner, or some of the most, brilliant intellectuals like Tal Ben Shahar. And turns out I, I'm not any of them. I'm not. I love poetry. I love story. I love being in direct, intimate conversation, as Louise said, with each other, stumbling and figuring it out together. One of the great tasks, says Paul Wong, our leading existential positive psychologist, is to figure out how to survive and thrive in this difficult world by becoming comfortable in our own skin. So, how might we accept ourselves just 3% more? For months since the beginning of the pandemic, I've been wrestling with an undercurrent of sorrow. It's been there from I can't whatever I do, I try all my positive psychology practices, and I can't the sorrow is there. And I have finally come to accept that whether it's my neurochemistry, whether it's my aging, whether it's my compassion, it doesn't really matter. It is who I am in this time. Every day I feel some sorrow, and that is okay. Permission to be human, permission to be who I am and love what I love. So I return to a practice I want to teach you now from a yoga teacher friend of mine. Her name is Aruni. I offer it to you. Name the thing what you are or what you love. I am sad. I love poetry. Oh well. And I love myself anyway. I am frightened. Oh well. And I love myself anyway. I am changing my identity. Oh well. And I love myself anyway. I am not always happy. Oh well. And I love myself anyway. Imagine how free we might feel if we just practice this simple practice. And yet, it isn't just about us, is it? It is always about us in relation to the larger world. Brazilian theologian Ruben Alves once wrote, "We must plant dates, even those who plant them may never see them. We must live by the love of what we will never see. We must live for the benefit of future generations, those we will never meet, never serve, never touch. They are coming, and it is our responsibility to create the world that is kind and beneficent for them. We must live by the love of what we will never see." I believe this is the mandate of our time. And so, a third permission to be human, permission to love what we love, and permission to be magnificent. This is from the Latin magnus facere, to make great. Permission to be scared, angry, frightened, bored, irritated, everything that we are in the middle of the pandemic, and bring the best of ourselves to this moment anyway, to take the action that invigorates you, that stands you centered in your values and virtues, and bring that wholeheartedness to life, to become maybe 2, 3, even 4% more your ideal self, this aspirational North Star that is out there. We may never reach, but let it guide us. Think for a moment now of the best moments of your life, those high point moments. I bet in those moments you were your better selves, if not your ideal self. When you were compassionate instead of seeking revenge, when you were patient instead of judging, when you were generous instead of uncaring. In those moments, we move the world a bit forward toward goodness, and we stand in the center pole of our own living. When I'm faced now with a tortured decision, I ask myself, who might I be at my best? And I give myself permission to go there. In June of this year, I lost one of my oldest friends to cancer. He was dying before the pandemic struck, and we knew we would not be able to be with him as he died. About a week before his death, we didn't know it would be quite that close. He and I agreed to meet, and his wife drove him to a parking lot and, parked the car and opened the car window. And I parked my car about 10 feet away and opened my window. And his wife went to go get food, and the two of us had a conversation across the parking lot space. And we talked about simple things like the sun and the music he was listening to, and how he really liked the hospice chaplain because they could talk about jazz together. And then he asked me a question, Maria, am I dying? And oh, Lord, I wanted to lie. But at my best, I am brave. And at my best, I name the thing that must be named. And so across the distance, that 10 feet of asphalt, I said, yes, not in this moment, but yes, very soon. And I could see his sadness deepen and the raptor of death rising behind him. And so I pushed myself to be even 3% more brave and name the other thing that I knew to be true, to give him hope, but not a false hope, a true hope, meaning one that I knew to be true. And I said, Ellie, we will do this again. And left it open to him to understand whether I meant we'll meet again in the parking lot or we will meet again in another lifetime. For I do believe that. I do believe we find each other over and over again. It was my attempt to be with him, stay connected, belong, but also belong to the deepest part of myself, which is a brave part, the one who is able to name the thing that must be named. Yes, you are dying. Yes. Permission to be brave, permission to be deeply rooted in your highest values. This is magnificence. Permission to be human, love what we love, and deepen into our magnificence anyway. These questions are not just academic, you see. They drive us forward into a better living. If we consider the research on authenticity, the benefits that accrue when we are who we are, when we love what we love, and when we stand up in our better selves, we are happier, we are more optimistic, we're more innovative and creative, we're more likely to take our day and our life and shape it in the direction of what serves us. We are less ill, we experience greater confidence and higher self-regard, higher respect. How many of us have found ourselves at other times in our lives trapped in lives that are not our lives, loving someone who's not our love, or working something that is not our work? How fun was that, right? How fun was that? I'm waking up in my 20s every morning thinking I hate myself, I hate my life, because I was not in a work that was my work. I was not with people who were my people. I had a dream once during that time that I was in a giant football stadium, like American football, but it could have been soccer football too. And I was at the very, very, very top row where you could barely see the field. And on the field were these tiny, tiny little players. And I realized in the dream that that was my life. The game of my life was on the field and I wasn't there. I was so far, there's no way I could call a play from up there. I was letting other people call the play of my life. There's a huge cost to letting other people drive the plays of our life. Depression, anxiety, remorse, chronic pain, and low energy. We cannot create. We cannot lead ourselves forward. We become smaller and locked in. So these 3 simple steps I offer to you this morning. Permission to be human. Oh, well, I am who I am and I love myself anyway. Permission to belong. Permission to belong to the world in the way you are here to belong. Make these lists. What do you love? Whom do you love? Where are you most alive? What invigorates you? And go there. Whatever keeps you alive in a healthful way, do that more and go there. And permission to be magnificent. If I were 3% more my ideal self, fill this sentence in. If I were 3% more my ideal self in this moment, what would that look like? How would I show up? There is no time to waste. There is only this time but now. I leave you with the words of American poet Stanley Kunitz, remembering a time as a young boy when he tested himself against a giant tree in the fields behind his home. He put stones in his pocket to throw at the tree to see if he could strike the tree. And he wrote this: "Once I owned the key to a trail thickened with moss, where flickering presence gave me right of passage. I walked deliberate into the clearing with the stones in my pocket. I had kept my appointment." You see, life has kept its appointment with us. We must show up ready to meet that appointment. I stood in the shadow at 50 measured paces of the inexhaustible oak tree, tyrant and target, and called forth, Father, wherever you are, I have only 3 throws. Bless my good right arm. In the haze of the afternoon, while the air flowed saffron, I played my game for keeps. In the haze of the afternoon, while the air flowed saffron, I played my game for keeps, for poetry, for love, for eternal life. Wherever you are, I bless your good right arm. We have no time to waste. Let us keep our own appointment with life, permission to be human, permission to belong and show up ready to belong, and permission to be magnificent. Thank you so, so much. It has been an honor and a pleasure and a privilege to be with you this morning.
Wow. No words, silence. You are magnificent. You know that. Thank you so much. It's a gift to all of us. Thank you. Thank you, Maya.